I know this opening sucks as loud as all get out. So, one of those things we got to kind of look at some point and try to figure out if possible I can fix it up. I mean, is what it is. I also brought my laptop a hair closer. Not that you really want to look at my ugly mug. It is what it is. But you know what? History's full of bullshit. And history's full of a lot of things that we tend to overlook or ignore. More importantly, there's a lot of stuff that goes on and that we're not aware of that either gets left out or misconstrued or intentionally pushed off to the side, or just because it's not flamboyant enough or, I don't know, shocking enough to be front line, bring it to everybody's attention kind of stuff going on. I mean, you can't really go anywhere in this day and age and not have, something going on saying that, blah. So, not that long ago, obviously, I'm sure enough of you seen some variation of this sticker showing up at your local gas station. Now, here in the Midwest, in Iowa specifically, here in Des Moines, gas prices were high just like everywhere else, comparatively higher. So, it depends on where you are. It depends on how much you pay on gas. Just right off the bat, you live in a higher urban environment or on the coast, you're going to pay a lot more for gasoline per gallon than you will here in the Midwest. It just is. That's just the way the economics has set things up. Biden has no control over that. I'm sorry, but no offense, a lot of people want to blame the president. I don't care if it's Biden or Trump before him or Obama before him or whatever. There's a reason why the presidential office isn't the end all to beat all. They don't have the power to do everything. Hello? There's a serious level of checks and balances going on that keeps the presidency from becoming a dictatorship, becoming a king, a monarchy, where at that point it doesn't matter what your so-called elected officials say because they have no control. It doesn't matter what Congress says because they have no control. The person who makes that decision is the monarch or the dictator. Hence, they dictate to you what you can and cannot do. And guess what? Biden does not have that power. It's no matter than sitting there when everybody started going on Mike Pence. Mike Pence should just reject the findings from the various election committees around the country and send it back to the states so we can buy time to keep Trump in power. That's what it was, to buy time to keep Trump in power. That is a dictator's move, my friends. Historically speaking, over and over and over and over from time immemorial. That is a human thing. That is a God's truth thing. They've tried to pull a coup. You can call it whatever the hell you want to call it, but that is the very essence of it. And we've talked about that in a previous video. It's one thing to go on and talk about. It's another thing to actually try to pull off the criminal act. And this is a very reprehensible criminal act. So that being said, economics dominates and drives the American system of doing things. Money talks, bullshit walks. I didn't make that saying up. Did you make that saying up? No. So what we have here is one individual in power that has very little control. I'm not saying he doesn't have some control, and he did, and he does, and he did enact on some of it. So by tapping the natural reserve, the nation's reserve stockpile to help bring the prices down, he sent a message. Now, what is the national stockpile for? For an emergency reasons. This really doesn't qualify. With the height of the pandemic, in the year following the pandemic, with the height of everything being outrageously overpriced by the corporations, my nose, I'm gonna sneeze, right? It's just, I don't know what it is. This pollen count's high outside or something. I don't usually get bothered by it, but yeah. Down says I have a mustache too. Right? That's why we have tails on our shirts instead of t-shirts. Yes, I'm fine. That's little Missy over here in the counter. I ought to just get a video and put her up here, a picture of her. She's a beautiful little tortoiseshell colored kitty. but she's so skinny. She's also been in heat the past week. She's been in and out of it. And right now she's behaving herself in her cat carrier over there, so I can be able to do my videos. Otherwise she would be literally all over the table, all over my laptop, and we would get nothing done. But she was very nice and went in there, yes. And she's saying she wants to get out. Yeah, a little while. Daddy's not done running his mouth. So, the sneezing aside, the cat aside. So, okay, Biden doesn't control fuel prices. He doesn't have that ability to just rubber stamp what the price is going to be at the pump. That's not how the system works. And come on, the lion's share of us know that. So those of us who purposely believe that he somehow was directly involved in that conspiracy to keep the prices high, really? Really? Jeez, dude. Get your head out of your ass. Say a little bit less to the Budweiser or something because your brain's rotting away. What the fuck? I mean, come on. Use your God's... That's one of the things that frustrates me about my extended family. Something fierce when I was growing up. Because there's some of that dumbass so lack of common sense. You know, God gave a plank. Come on. Really? Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on the Christian values today and just how effed up and warped they are because they sure don't follow the Christian values that you were freaking indoctrinated into having in the Christian church. Fuck asses. Anyway, so let's take another, just a slight different thing. Do you know how much money got spent and wasted on this bullshit stunt here? I don't care where I went. I kept seeing these little stickers crop up. So somebody's printing and selling these things and making money off of you. So you could put your little 2-cent comment to be funny on somebody's pump. So you're defacing a privately owned device by putting these stickers on there. Have you tried taking the stickers off after you put one on? I see that all over the place. You can see the residue from where they've tried scraping them off and they can't get it all off. They tried peeling them off. So you're defacing somebody else's property. So much for being lovers of... isn't it funny? Isn't it interesting and ironic? As human beings and as nature is, we all tend to be... we want rule of law. We want regulations. We want things to help protect ourselves and our friends and our loved ones and our environment to some level. Except when it's not convenient for you or for me. So how much do we nod and wink and nudge at all of our own laws? I mean, how often do you break the law on a daily basis and don't think about doing it? You don't even think about it. Laws are still laws. It doesn't matter. I was in a convenience store back in the day, and I had some young individuals come in and steal some. It was back when 16-ounce bottle of pop was still a thing, and they stole a pallet or a case of bottles. So that was 24 bottles, three 8-packs in a case, and it was on a display by the gas pumps. And then they left, and it wasn't there. So I called the cops because that's what we do. And the police happened to have somebody up the street, and they immediately pulled the person over. And sure enough, there was the pallet of the pop sitting in their back seat. Now it was only a couple dollars in those days. It was only a couple bucks for that whole pallet. And I told that when the cop come back, and I had to identify the person in the vehicle driving off, because this is before we had cameras and things like that on everything. And I told him, I said, I felt stupid. I kind of felt stupid for calling him over something petty like that. And the cop said $2 or $2 million. It's still breaking the law. It doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, isn't that the truth? How many laws do you break daily that you wink and you nod and you nudge, or you're frustrated, you're in a hurry, you don't care? Mostly motor vehicle laws, but they're still laws, and they're laws on the books for a reason, right? I don't know, not having your cell phone in your hand when you're operating your vehicle should also not only be a law, but should be common sense. Hello, you shouldn't be, I don't know, you shouldn't be trying to give yourself a haircut while driving down the interstate neither. But somebody tries. Somebody does their makeup or does their hair or changes their clothes. I've seen a video on a fella on YouTube here that got himself in trouble for editing videos while driving his semi down the highway. He actually had his laptop up on the dash, and he was editing videos as he was hauling ass down the highway. Don't take for granted that the guy or the person in that vehicle before you, in front of you, behind you, or beside you are paying attention. Don't take it for granted that they are paying attention, because they are likely not paying attention. They're dependent on you to not do something sudden and crazy. I'm just saying. So, is Biden a crook? Right? I mean, we get down the road and we start talking about Biden and things like, you know, is he a crook? Hunter Biden's laptop, and obviously there's some kind of chicanery going on because Biden's getting payments from abroad, or from foreign governments, or he's getting kickbacks from his son's endeavors. Okay. One, let's just talk about Hunter Biden just for a second. I don't give a damn about him personally. Before the Biden became president, I never even heard of this guy. And why? Why would I care? Why would I care? He posted his junk on the internet. The internet's full of people posting their junk on the internet for free. Lots of people have posted. And I'll bet you a lot more of your favorite politicians are not favorite politicians. They got stuff like that floating around out there too. They just are really good about having it buried, or it just hasn't cropped up, or it's not worth seeing. No offense. Please, Laura Boebert, do not post anything like that on the internet. I do not want to even remotely hear that there's something on there for OnlyFans for Lauren Boebert. Because you know what? You likely need some kind of job coming up soon. Because I'm hearing you're not doing so hot in the election. You're a crazy, crazy person, and you have no business being in politics. Ever. Ever. But that's a video unto itself. Probably a series of videos, right? So, first things first. Who the hell's Hunter Biden, and who do we give a fuck? So, Hunter Biden traded on Daddy's connections and name. It's America! Come on, hello! Hello? Anybody in there? Come on, people. Jesus, it's part of the way shit works in America. It ain't what you know, it's who you know, who they know, who the connections are. Dumb luck. And daddy's the money. Got daddy and mommy's the money, you go a long way. You got a lot of advantages. But at the end of the day, he's trading on his daddy's, well, those shit. Durr. Hey, that's not illegal. It's not illegal. It's maybe questionable, maybe immoral, but in and of itself is as apple pie in America, because Americans have been trading on their daddy and mommy's reputation and names since forever. It goes back long before humanity or America was ever a country. It's just a part of human condition. So, what the real fuck? No, what they want is they're desperate to find something hardcore, something solid that somehow they can use to smear and or to accuse Biden of an actual crime. So, obviously, a lot of authorities had this laptop. A lot of people have had opportunities to dig through the stuff. I'm not sounding like there's a whole lot of shit in there worth having out to wave around in front of Fox News. Okay, so you have nothing. Basically, there's nothing in there except from dirty dick pics and some other stupid crap, but nothing that really says Daddy got a bunch of money from some company or country or something. No, so you're lying about that. So you're speculating, and you're hiffing and hoffing on the hopes that, you know, by whistling the dog, doing the dog whistle for the punks, that they'll roll over and jump up and down because they don't hear the whole story, or they don't get past the fact. All they want is somebody to pin something on to make Biden look bad. Look, friends, Biden has plenty of crap to make himself look bad. You do not need to go and make shit up. You don't. As for, meanwhile, apples and oranges? Anyone? Hello? How much trading on daddy's money and name and position goes on in this country? You name a family. that didn't generate, I don't know, $2 billion with a B, $2 billion into some kind of fund. I hear it's closer to the $3 billion now, but you know, that's hearsay because I don't know physically. I have not seen the book, so I don't know what is or isn't do. But I'm pretty sure that Jared Kushner, who was nobody outside his circles, but when he got into the presidency, to the office, he really got into the presidency. See, this is where we go full circle when I talk about the presidency itself. So it's bad enough to have the president if he's a conniving con man, lying, thieving, sack of BS, raping such and so and so. Proven in court, all of that. None of that's fake. It's all proven by his peers in court, right? Whether that's legitimate court, we can make that argument to the end of the world, because at the end of the day, we're back to what do you willfully want to be ignorant of? Or what do you really want to acknowledge as some common sense or some, what are we going to do? So in the case of, you know, Trump, Biden, blading Biden. Well, Trump's family, once again, like I said, do I need to point out all of Trump's family benefiting from Daddy being in the office? Really? Do I? You just go down through the history books. You think you think the oh damn it, that FDR. Jesus, the Kennedys. You think Kennedy's family didn't benefit from their knowledge of inside knowledge of people, places, contacts, family, money, events, things like this? They didn't benefit on any of that. None of them capitalized on what Grandpa did and their daddy did, and that led them to having a son as a president and several high-level senators and so on and so forth. Still have members of that family. So, Mr. Kennedy, Senator Kennedy? Is it Senator or is it Representative Kennedy? I'm not quite 100% sure which, you know, part of Congress you're a member of, but how much does your daddy's family's connections play a role in you getting your elected position? Getting into the position to be elected at all, to even get into that field? Do I need to keep going on and on about the very facts that that's how that shit works? America, come on, America! Wake the fuck up! Jesus, people. Please do not let these idiots that are sitting in that idiot box in your living room tell you anything without you using your open your brain and check more than one source. For the love of God, don't trust MSBN, don't trust CNN, don't trust, for the love of God, don't trust Fox News. I'm not even going to mention any of the third-rate freaking wannabe cable companies out there, because they're all in it for the green. They're all in it for the green, man. It's all about money and what spins the story that gets the most freaking people to watch. How many chumps can they get to buy the bullshit, right? So, who gives a shit about Hunter Biden? If you got proof that Biden did anything in his career that's truly shady, that's truly illegal, let's get it on the table. Because like I said, do the crime, do the time. You know, prove he did something illegal. Let's nail his ass for it. Let's nail his ass, his sleepy ass, to the wall. Because if he broke a law, he has no business being president. And that holds hardcore for all the damn elected people. From this God's Supreme Court down. There has to be a limit. There has to be a standard. There has to be a do not cross line. Because if you don't do that, if we don't have that equal level playing field, then we're going to fail as an entity. And the next stage of what America is going to go through is going to be a nightmare. And I'm just glad I'm getting older and older and less likely to see that much of it. So, right? Let's talk about some of Biden's problems. I'm not an expert, and I am not going to pretend that I am. I don't spend the entire day sitting there trying to research all this stuff, going down the numerous rabbit holes and shifting through the damn garbage piles to find whatever. So, hey, is he too old? That's one of the glaring big deals right now. In his 80s, right? he shows signs of being old, like an I'm tired old, I need to sit down old. At what point in our life do we reach where we feel that we really are not going, we're less of a, or more of a hindrance to our contributes to society in general than being helpful. So if we reach a point, and physically speaking, we are not capable of handling the position that we've volunteered to take, that we've accepted, we need to be able to step down. We need to be able to be adult enough, wise enough to know when we're being a problem and it's time for us, no matter what the current situation is, for us to step aside and let somebody else take that position. There's no shame in that. There are plenty of politicians today that really, truly, truly should step down. Miss Feinstein, for example. And from what I'm hearing right now, what's going on with McConnell, I don't like McConnell. I would love to see McConnell step down. But I don't want him to step down. In this case, I want him to step down. If his medical, he's having some serious problems. And a lot more is going on behind the scenes than what the public is being made aware of. And if that doesn't affect his reelection, then shame on you, America. Shame on you, and you elected people elect that poor man back into that position where he's going to die. And as for Miss Feinstein, she doesn't even know where the hell she's at half the time. She fits the very, very carbon copy picture of somebody with Alzheimer's. Not dementia, Alzheimer's. Which is, I have to question, I have to ask you, America, I have to ask, at what point is somebody who's incapable of making rational decisions and thoughts, which is what we elected this person to do. Her constituents elected Miss Feinstein to stay in office to represent them, to make educated decisions and based off of her beliefs and the shared beliefs of those who elected her. At what point does it stop being that, when they're at the end of the day, they merely become a puppet of who's ever telling them what to say? So it doesn't matter if she has a Democrat or Republican handler, because if that, I guarantee you, the Republicans are not going to. They're going to do everything they can to keep her in power, because that they can't afford to lose that spot. They can't afford to risk losing her spot to a Democrat, which is likely to happen come election time, because I understand it's Katy Perry that's running against her, and Katy Perry is a juggernaut. She is going to steamroll. That woman someday is likely to be president, unless something drastically changes between now and then. I actually see she has a strong chance of becoming president sometime in the next 10 years. So they keep Feinstein in control instead of letting her retire. And because she physically, dementially, mentally speaking, isn't capable of making the decision on her own anymore. Unless she has a real lucid moment and they get somebody that's willing to stand up and back that up, anything she does and says is just going to be pushed aside by her handlers. I guarantee you that if her handler was a Democrat and was feeding her Democratic BS, so she would start doing things the Democratic way, which would be totally against her, who she is, her Republican counterparts would be livid and beside themselves, and would be immediately putting motions forward to have her removed from office. Think about that for a minute, huh? Think about that one for a minute, America. What's the odds and truth on that? Yeah, I think that's quite plausible. So McConnell, he keeps blanking out. I don't know what that sign that is. From what little I can understand, that's not a good sign. Historically speaking, we've seen lots of people stay in office long beyond the point where they should have, and much to their own detriment. We've had a couple presidents die in office, and overwork and stress will do it to you. So that brings up the answer: Joe Biden too old. How old is he? How is he going to be? He seems to have trouble remembering things sometimes. He dozes off a lot. And to his defense, people want to rail on him because that's a sign of his old age. Fuck you. Yeah, go fuck yourself. That's right, what I said. Go fuck yourself and the horse you rode in on. Because I'm telling you right now, most of us sitting at one of those awful, long-winded, tiring events would be hard-pressed not to do the same damn thing. I guarantee you I'd have been one of those people out there dozing off. Is it over? Yeah, what are we voting with? I did what? Yeah, great to be a congressman today. Yeah, I'm just saying. So, okay. You know, Bernie Sanders is pushing 120. I mean, he's what, 90 or damn close, and he's got a lot of energy, a lot of blood, and a lot of passion, and that passion fuels him more than anything else at his age. But do I really want to risk electing him to president for 4 years? The only reason I would is because of what he stands for and what I think he would really truly try to achieve. Whether he would achieve it's another story. Which brings us into the next problem with Biden. In most presidents in general, Biden's a good example of this, right? Biden's actually a middle of the range politician. There's a good reason why he got elected, in part because he's not as pro-social, as pro-progressive as he tried to sometimes was portrayed as when he was running for election. He is not. You talk about history revisited. Go back and revisit his history of his very lengthy career and his stances on many things when he was in Congress, and then later when he was vice president. This man is not a progressive by any means. Very, very right field of the progressives. No, he's not very aggressive when it comes to it. And he proved that because, once again, like every politician, he promised a lot of promises to get elected. And once he got in office, a lot of those things never came true. He never even attempted to fix them. Or he's trying to do this typical Democrat bullshit philosophy that we should always to work together as a group. The Democrats, much to their credit, push too often, too hard for this bipartisan bullshit. No offense, the Republicans don't give a fig about your goddamn freaking participation. When it's they proving it in the last 2 years over and over and over again at the state, local, and federal level. You just listen. It's just going on. I'm in Iowa, and I have seen and heard them do some pretty absurd things that there was no debate. The Democrats had no chance in hell of ever blocking any of these things. It just happened. They just said, the governor said, let's make this happen. Bing, bang, boom. We're going to ban certain types of books, except they purposely word it vague enough and put enough of a fear factor in the possibility we don't exactly know what they'll do to us, kind of fear into the damn wording of the bill, that they're banning all kinds of shit from these libraries that have no reason to be banned whatsoever. And more of it's got to do about political and racial stuff than anything to do with sex. Just look at the list of books that they post that they're being told to pull. And then meanwhile, because of the way the role is vague, it's left in purposely vague so people can screw around and F up. So instead, the librarians and the people in charge are taking the proactive, I want to protect my butt process, and are over banning stuff. Well, it's we don't want our kids to have access to things that are inappropriate. You're right. We do not want our young children to have access to things that their minds aren't really suited to understand. But at what point do they get to do that? At what point do we decide as a society that that's fine? Because if that's fine, then why are why are college universities being challenged? Are college university libraries supposed to ban these same books? Why? Are they college kids not adults? Are they not age appropriate as in old enough to make decisions on their own, to vote, to serve in the military if necessary? Hello? You want to talk to me about that? All right. Now, if any of y'all don't know nothing, I have another channel, right? And it's game related, Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff ish, lots of it, right? And that's my big passion. It's a big thing, and for me, it's a lot of stuff. a lot of stuff that I've collected, a lot of knowledge I've chose to know and to become familiar with. So back in the 80s, they had this something called the Satanic Panic. I got to see that firsthand. My normal, rational mother, who had no problems with me buying my Dungeons and Dragons and other game material at the time. I was in my mid-teens, 13, 14 years old, when this Satanic Panic took over, and this madness gripped a whole bunch of church people about how all kinds of things from heavy metal to Dungeons and Dragons is, I don't know, Lucifer aspiring, satanic worshipping, whatever. And so they got it in their head that they needed to burn the books. And they literally did that. My mother sat out and started a bonfire in our backyard down by the barn and burnt a couple, about 15 of my first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books, which I don't have the money to buy brand new again. And when I was, Mom then shortly came after that, my grandfather, her father, who was a minister of fire and brimstone, throw Bibles at you from his pulpit. You doze off in his church. You talk about old Sleepy Joe over here. He'd got a Bible upside his head for my grandfather, and my grandfather wouldn't have been apologetic about it. He'd have just told him, "There ain't no president of mine gonna fall asleep in the house of the Lord," and that was my grandfather. And I was five, Grandpa, when you threw that damn Bible at me. Made me sit there by your feet on the podium the rest of the night, scared shitless because I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I mean, welcome to America, because that's the way the Christian right is turned into psychopaths, and they don't. The scary part is they don't see it. And the very things that they march against are shit they're doing themselves, that they're pushing themselves, not the Christian way. So Biden may be too old. Is he too old to run again for another 4 terms? Here's the real problem with somebody who runs that risk. Biden runs and he gets elected, and then 6 months or a year into his second term, he cloaks. He has a stroke or a heart attack, goes into a coma, gets dementia. Ronald Reagan, anyone? Isn't it interesting how we played down that part of Reagan? The last 2 years or 3 years of his second term, when he basically was not acting as president at all. He was just a figurehead being propped up by his immediate supporters and his wife, who was Nancy. By understanding, Nancy made a lot of key decisions and stuff for him at that point. She's spoon-feeding him his answers so he can respond. Also, they could keep him propped up as president. If he had been a Democratic president, how hot and bothered would the GOP had been about replacing him? So, once again, where's importance? Well, who did they serve as second, who is vice president? So we look at Condoleezza Harris, for example. What do we know about her? She gets a lot of bad press, and there's a lot of people who don't think very well of her, especially since she's become vice president. And there's no talk whether or not she's going to stay Biden's vice president, or if she would be asked to be stepped down and be replaced by somebody less, or somebody more likable. That happened. Look at Bush's second term. The first term he had, Reagan. He had Colonel What's-His-Face, and I can't even think his name off the top of my head, and then he was replaced and had another damn vice president on the second term. It's acts of convenience. So, saying that Pence had a whole bunch of power to do this, that, and the other thing was absurd, because if you're even a modest student of the Constitution, of how this government operates, of our own history, you'll understand that being a vice president's a joke. I'm not saying anything bad about the office, but at the end of the day, as a public servant, the vice president serves only two primary roles. The only 2 roles is his job description. He's going to chair the House of Representatives and act as a tiebreaker in the event that there's a tie. Or is that the House of the Senate? Is it the Senate? Yeah. Okay. Right. So there's the only real job they have. And to be ready to hot foot into the White House if something happens to the boss. So they're their natural replacement. So the odds are really good that wherever the president goes, the vice president is hiding somewhere safe. So we don't usually see a whole lot of the vice president. The vice president doesn't go out on public tours and do fact-finding things and do stuff. And I think that's a shame. I think the vice president's position is grossly underrepresented and underutilized. I think the vice president should have more duties and more jobs. It would take some stress off of the president, as in that's what you have a number two for. But there's also some caution there too. There was some thought back in the day as though they didn't want the vice president to have a whole lot of power because they wouldn't any kind of conflict of interest between the president. Only be one president, only be one boss. So if you don't, we're back to that history revisited. Go back to your history books and read a little bit about what it was like what did originally the vice president position do and mean. Well, early back in the day, it was one of those quote compromises. So the losing running mate of the opposite party would be automatically given that position. So in a presidential campaign, if your foe becomes president, you lose, you then by default become vice president. So at that point we actually have a member of the president is representing whatever party that elected them, and the vice president is supposedly representing the opposite party. They're not members. At that point, we're not members of the same party. And I'm not quite sure when that transition changed, because at some point it was a change made by the parties and not by the rules. They didn't change the law, so to speak. So there's no law that says you have to have your opponent be vice president. So they somehow they manipulated and changed the law so that ceased to be that way. So the vice president really doesn't have that much authority position-wise, unless something shit bad happens, right? So you have to look at your vice president, though, very cautiously, because there's a real good possibility, although minimal, that something could very well happen. And the older our presidents get, the older they are when they start to serve office, the higher the risk factor of something happening increases. Just because of age, stress takes its toll. There's probably one good reason you don't see Biden do too much public stuff. He's no Trump when it comes to being an attention whore. Trump's attention whore constantly. He can't live with himself. That'll be the thing that kills Trump the most, the fastest. I'm guarantee you, he goes to prison and does any significant time. He doesn't more than a year in the damn prison system. The fact that he can't get any attention, that he won't be able to tweet or be able to Twitter or be able to comment directly himself to anything, is going to kill him. It's going to kill him. His lack thereof, his relevance or lack thereof, is going to hit him so damn hard, because he's in his entire life in this mode that most people can't live. We don't live in that kind of that mindset and mode, and we would never be in a position to get to that point, because he'd never had any serious checks or balances. He's never had enough people tell him no. Here's a thought, Donald. No. Go fuck yourself, dude. Enjoy prison. You got it coming to you. And for the GOP guys, come on, wake your asses up. Pick somebody else. You really want Sleepy Joe for another 4 years? I'm not sure I do. Because here's my big problem with Biden. My big problem with Biden isn't his age. It isn't his party connections. It isn't some of his somewhat neo-social program status things that he kind of trumps about. The biggest thing I have about him is he's a liar. Most politicians lie. Biden's lied plenty. He's a liar. He doesn't hold up to half the shit he claimed he was going to do. He didn't even try. See, when it came to pushing for an actual minimum wage increase for the average American, he made a lot of noise about it, but it quietly never went anywhere, and it never was going to. He never intended for it to go anywhere, ever. And The only reason he's pushing some of the agendas he is now because he knows he has to. But at the end of the day, those agendas he's pushing are lackluster at best. He makes a lot of splash, it makes a lot of noise, but they really don't achieve very much. And so a lot of it, now granted, it was a big thing. The fact that they shot down this Build Back Better America plan was sad because so many things for the average American. Average Joe American, my friends. Not average Republicans or average Democrats or average independents, but hardworking folks. Hardworking folks. I say it over and over again. At no point in my lifetime have I made more money than I make now. I had a check for just over $800 Friday, and I had 47 hours, a little over 7.5 hours overtime to get to that $800. So I'm making $19 an hour, and I could be making more working for somebody else. I know that for a fact. But you know, I have the job I have. I've run this show more or less and do my own thing. My boss is really good people. You know, I live really close to home. There's advantages, there's disadvantages. The disadvantages would be there if I was working for a competitor because they work the same kind of funky stuff that we do. A lot of them do. In their cases, they have more drivers, so that helps. You know, I would work for somebody else. I'd be driving for, I don't know, Ready Mix or somebody, driving something that doesn't involve me climbing up under shit anymore. That's a big thing that's getting to me, right? So, at the end of the day, though, I get hit with a $184 water bill. It's usually about $60. So, oh my God, now we got to come up with another $120 I wasn't expecting to have. My wife had surgery on her knee back in the spring. We still owe about $900. I don't have $900 to send it to them, and they're screaming and squawking and squealing and squealing because like I'm not paying them nothing. And I'm sending them $30 here, $25 here, $30 there, on a minimum of $30 a month. And I try to do it as often as I can, but I also try to pay off my taxes from last year too, because of some adjustments and stuff. Because of my back child support finally ending and crap, I still owe money for my taxes, so I still owe the federal government a couple $100 here, $25 here, $30 there. Right? So, at our MediaCom, the wonderful technology I used to do these videos and broadcast it, I mean, it's $125 a month for just fucking basic internet, for Christ's sake. And they won't do me a deal right now because I'm already under, you know, I had a deal and it expired, and I said, well, do you know your competitors are stringing cables and stuff in our neighborhood this summer? It's just a matter of time before they will have competition over here. And the MetroNet people said they can give me 2 years for $75 a month. Is that a good thing? I hear that Verizon's got a thing that you can get for a hotspot for about $50 a month. I don't know exactly how well they work, right? But, you know. So, what I'm getting at is that I had this take home was a little over $800. And so the wife and I went and paid bills, and bought her $80, $90 worth of damn cat food and other crap we have to buy because we feed a lot of damn cats. And then my groceries, we ended up with like $20 left out of $800. I no money to go to it. We can't go out, can't go see a movie. I mean, I got gas in the van, we got groceries in the cabinet, the lights are paid for another month. Or in this case, the internet's paid for another month. Our water bill's paid. But there's nothing left. There's nothing left to put away in savings. What's savings? I'm still struggling to understand how I'm supposed to achieve that. You know, now I work to get those 47 hours. I probably spend better part of 60 hours total to get those 47 because, you know, I have a split shift. So, well, that's great. I work for 5 or 6 hours, and then I go home for a couple hours, and I go back out and work for another 5 or 6 hours. So what did I do with those couple hours in between? I just didn't get paid. Basically, I'm idling off the clock, but I don't get paid for it. You know, it's just, what do you do? So I don't see the benefits. So when we talk about Biden's economy, Biden's increased the economy. The economy's improved. But I also want to point out something that they're currently not talking about in any of the news, whether it's mainline or YouTube based or whatever. I find that interesting how some things, tend to. It's like going to court and they tell you to take this oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Ever notice the part when you get to the whole truth part, the lawyers will shut you down because they don't want you to talk about the whole truth? Oh, they want to, for timely considerations. No, the whole truth is something you can't explain in less than, I can't just say yes or no to your question, fucknut. We need to explain the situation as to why yes or no can't be answered. But I guess that's not pertinent enough. So it's the same scenario. So it's the same scenario when we look at this stuff. So we don't control any of this shit. Yet we're suffering from it. The unemployment rate is at the lowest it's ever been, and I keep hearing people complaining about the unemployment being too low. I guess apparently you don't want 100% of your country working. You always want a small position, amount of people who are willing to take less because they're struggling. So that's what happens. You lose your job for one reason or another, and then desperation. If my boss croaks tomorrow or today, and the boss's wife decides we're done, I have to find a job ASAP. It's not something where I can sit around for 2 weeks or a month. I would be horribly stressed. We would be in danger of collapsing our ability to stay our heads above water. We would be dog paddling for our lives until I found another job, until that job actually started producing an income, because that's how tight things are. And how the hell I'm supposed to ever get out of that? How I'm supposed to work for retirement when I can't save nothing? I don't have a retirement to save. All I have is Social Security, and some handful of fucknuts out there are damn determined to get rid of it because it offends them somehow. And the sad part is that the lion's share of their own damn political base is also going to depend on that very same program that you're allowing people you're electing to want to get rid of. Oh no, they want to privatize. They want to get it out of the hands of the government. Really? To what end? They're going to give it to these big corporate greedy fucks that take most of your money now, so then they can tell you you don't need that health care. You're going to die. We got your back, right? We're going to save our money because, you're going to die. You could live for another 5 years if we had those pills, but you're going to die because we don't fucking care about you. As opposed to the government program that's set up that says if you belong to the program, you get 100% of everything you're entitled to have now. No? Nobody? Okay. Right? So, the same problem. Biden could have corrected some of that. He could have acted a little harder on it. Yeah, he's got the Biden's office, the Democrats, because we attribute a lot of things that get done by a larger group of people to one individual when it's not truly all just one guy. It's like I said when I started with the economy part. It's well established that most of the current economy, recovery-wise, money-wise, how things are going well, it was actually established 4 years ago. So we were still under Trump's leadership when the economy started to swing. So the economy went into the tank under Trump's leadership, but it started this downward spiral under Obama at the very end, when the markets were going shit south because of the damn pandemic breaking out, and we all knew there was a problem. Nobody did anything about it when they should have prior to the damn election, and then they just handed the MacGuffin over to a very incompetent buffoon who has no freaking idea what to do about running a country in the first damn place. That's right, Trump, right? Yeah. So anyway. Part of the upswing for the economy has got to do with Trump. And the other part of it is we're back to that, wake up, America. You're not stupid. You're not this damn stupid. Come on. I mean, hello. You lay off, the big corporate overlords decided the way to save money for them was to shut the doors down. And when we're going to shut the doors down, we're just going to let everybody go, or almost everybody go. Right. So how many major corporations, how many companies did, when the pandemic break out, did your boss lay you off? Did your boss shut the doors and say, well, maybe we'll come back in 6 months or a year? Did just more or less write you off? When you did come back, were you able to just immediately go back and resume your position with your pension, your time served, and all that other crap, or did you have to reapply for your job? Maybe you don't get as many benefits and bonuses and incentives that you did before because they took this opportunity to reset a lot of things. It's like that unemployment for so long. So many companies out there just desperate for help. Everybody's desperate for help. So what happened? It's like 25% of their 20% of the nation up and disappeared. So that's all I hear. They go on about it constantly here in Iowa. It's less now than it was a year back. But all these lazy so-and-sos that just, whatever reason, they're not wanting to work their fifth job. We're not working 3 jobs anymore. Grandma and grandpa in their 80s decided that they wanted to live and stayed home instead of risk that terrible pandemic crap. And then after sitting home for a year or so, they just decided it's just not worth getting up and going out there for the few peanuts that I was able to bring in. If you're totally destitute, there are some programs that will help you out. But you got to be totally destitute to get there. If you're kind of almost destitute, you're going to get destitute. They're going to first thing that welfare programs does is make sure you don't have any assets. Do you have a spare car? Do you have, I don't know, do you have an old motorhome out back that maybe you should have sold? Could you sell your liver? Where's the cutoff? And there are certain elements of our GOP that would make the cutoffs so impossible to pass that nobody would pass. And I just find it ludicrous at best that any any politician who's never actually walked a frickin' mile in the feet of most people in this country have any business making policy on shit they have no understanding of. I'm sorry, but I grew up with some haves and have-not differences. I know a friend of mine's family were better off than my family considerably because they had a lot of haves that I had not. My sister had not. And not that I was jealous for them. It wasn't until I got older that I realized just how much poorer my family was compared to my buddy's family. And my other friend's family were actually a little better but not much better than we were. Maybe a hair better. And that's because his mom and dad both worked for the government. My dad worked for Firestone, and my mom didn't work at all until I got into my teens, and then my sister got into high school. My mom went and got a part-time job at that point. First time she'd ever had a job in her life was in her late 40s, early 50s, and she worked for 9 years at a local nursing home in the laundry room. And that was the most she'd ever worked in her life because she came from an era where the women didn't work. They stayed home. They'd look after the home and the family and the kids, etc. And Dad worked, and he worked his ass off. And I always thought we were fairly okay. I never considered us being poor. I never considered until I got older my dad having canaries about Mom spending more than $50 at the grocery store. Because $50 to a kid sounded like a lot of money, but nowadays when I'm struggling to avoid spending $200 at the grocery store for just the wife and me. Jeez. I mean, yeah. So the interest rates have gone down. Great. Unemployment's gone way down. Fantastic. Why am I not doing better? Why are my neighbors struggling too? Why are we still struggling as hard as we were 2 years ago? Right? It goes back to this full circle to this price gallon crap. These corporate yahoos that have no knowledge of what it's like to live off of, $30,000 a year. Try living off of 40. My wife and I are around 50,000 and we're holding our own, but barely. There's nothing left. There's very little left over for fun shit, let alone for emergency shit. I mow that strip club next door so I can have that emergency money so we can try to take care of some things. And geez. I got another freaking 55-hour check coming next Friday. So thank God, because my furnace bill, I had to replace the furnace over the winter, and that's $180 a month, so that's due, and my van payment's due. There's $120, and so I got a $5,000 van. It's taking me 5 years to pay off. Yeah. How nice a car is, everybody else, everybody's got nice cars. I'm just grateful my van's running with it and hasn't had any significant problems. So Biden could do things better. Yeah, fuck yeah. Could he do more? Yeah, he could do more. Could he do more for the average working stiff? Yeah, he could do a hell of a lot more. But he's also, once again, limited by just how much he can really do when it comes to enacting major policy change. That involves getting Congress on board. And we know what happens when Congress when one party dominates all of Congress, don't we? Remember how the Democrats had a solid control of both the House and Senate and the presidency? And all the massive changes for better that took, oh wait, yeah, right, yeah, all the opportunities that never took place, that never happened because of and I want to blame Manchin for a lot of it, and at some pieces of me wants to think, Manchin's a douchebag and actually was doing some of what they said, and another part makes me think, so is he the whipping boy that the Democratic Party chose to use as the foil so we don't actually have to enact some of these very unpopular policies that their corporate donors don't like? Yeah, so Biden's a corporate lackey. His history proves that over and over and over again. And a lot of the policies and votes and things he could have voted for and changed and done different that he chose not to do different, that's just in part because of the party line, and other part because of who his donors are and who he's kowtowing, which in part is a sad thing to me, because I understand when you're trying to make your chops and you're getting traction, you're just getting your career going, you really need to be part of the good old boy network, that you really need to follow the party lingo and do what the party masters want you to do, be a good little elected stooge. But when you reach a certain age, the advantages of these older years, at some point, you should be able to sit back and go, I want to do things because it's the right thing to do. Politics be damned. Party politics be damned. I would like to do the things the right way because it's the right thing to do. And to do it verbally and openly in such a manner that if it fails, the public can sit there and go, why did it fail? Why did that really beneficial program that would have helped everyone, the lion's share of the country, just because somehow that 1% doesn't get to cash in and make a load of money off of it, because somehow helping the lion's share of the public is taking it away from them. Yeah. So go back a little bit to history again. Late 1800s. So we had the quote golden age, when we had the Carnegies and the Mellons and so on and so forth, and big steel and American muscle and big oil and intercontinental railroads and all this other fine stuff. So we ran into a situation at that period of time, late 1800s, where more and more of the wealth of the country was congregating in tinier and tinier portions. To the majority of us were dirt poor and literally killing ourselves, literally dying every day, working in those toxic environments in the corporate, industrial work fields, and out in the farmlands and all the horrible shit. Life expectancy on the average person in America was in their mid-40s. Mid-40s. You think about that now. We lived at twice that on a good day. So, how much your life's already over by the time you break 40. Oh yeah, right? Meanwhile, The conditions just kept getting worse. People kept dying and dying in larger numbers. The dissatisfaction was growing and growing and growing, and was going to have a problem. The very fact that America has not had a version of French's Revolutionary War, or the Bolsheviks revolution there in the very early 1900s in Russia, that overturned the monarchy there in this country, is staggering, to be honest. And I think they keep talking about rebellion, they keep talking about a civil war. I think that's the kind of civil war that's likelier to happen than this political rhetoric bullshit over divides between red and blue states. That's a load of shit. No, the fact of it is, our politicians are so disconnected to the way things work, and they're so embedded into what the handful of the 1% crowd want done, because they're the ones raking in the lion's share of the loot, that they're willing to ignore a lot of stuff to their own detriment. And will we see that? I hope not. I hope not at all. I don't think, frankly, I don't want to see Biden for another 4 years. I think Biden is still a continuation of the problem. He is part of the same problem that's been in play since frickin' Reagan. So for the last 40 odd years, Americans been sabotaged. American population, the average American has had its American dream sabotaged to line the pockets of a tiny, tiny percent of people. And the worst part is that we're blind to it, that we can't see where our parents and our grandparents had was better than what we have. We have this group of people that are, are lamenting the passage of time, that are crying to go back to a simpler, cleaner time in America. Well, I hate to break the news for you that you're not ever going back. It'll never be that 1950s America again for anybody, good or bad. And that's a good thing, because there's so much bad that's happened since then. It's like America, the land of the home of the land of the free and the home of the brave. I'm going to do a whole video on that, but then everybody would start labeling me some kind of communist or terrorist or some hater of the American way of life. No, it's the realities of the world, jackass. How much better America really could have been, the potential we should have had, that didn't have, because when we sat down and our forefathers created this wonderful experiment that we call America, and the frickin' Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all these massive things that affected people for generations and generations, and changed the world forever, hopefully for better. Could have been much better had we just honored the very words that they put down in those three Holy Testament of law. It deemed that all men are, the undeniable truth that all men are created equal. And there are no caveats there, friends. All men are created equal, except if you're women. Except if you're a non-middle-aged white guy. That's not for you. That's not for you. Don't you worry about those things. If you go about your whatever sort of life you have, and leave it up for us white older guys to tell you how to live your life, because you'll be far better for it. Yeah, right. Just whole video on that shit. I'm trying not to get off. This video's already running way too long. I'm not trying to get off on a tirade on that too. God, I got so much frustration and anger and other stuff going on that I could spew on this stuff for ages. Yeah. So I would not, if I had my way, I would. I think it should be by law mandatory for the parties to have a runoff. I think that the fact that the Democrats are somehow avoiding having Biden get up in front of a bunch of his peers to actually see if he can win the party election. It's a given that he's going to get it because he's an incumbent and everybody hates Trump. Or most people hate Trump. That's not enough. No offense. And as for the full circle again about age thing, I honestly think we need to have a start of medical limitations that you need to be able to pass a certain level of physical and mental awareness to hold a position of authority in government, especially a position of high authority in government. It's just like, that would apply to all branches. So that would apply also to the Supreme Court. So you get some individuals in the Supreme Court that are just way too damn old, and they just are so out of touch from the real functions of the world and how things are going, or because of medical issues, we got to wait for them to croak and come out of a coma before we can replace them. I don't think so. It's just like we have medical minimum requirements. We have some minimum requirements to be president of the United States, do we not? You can't. You have to be over I think over 30. What's the exact year? But it's in. You can't be 20 and run for president. You have to be a born naturalized citizen. So what that means is your mom and daddy can come from anywhere else. As long as you were born here and you're an American, then you can run for president. So that's in part the nature of what America is. Our whole existence was bringing everybody from everywhere else and kicking the damn Native Americans off their property so we have plenty of Laban's room. But at the end of the day, right? As long as you're an American, then that's all that matters. You should be an American. You should be a voting age. So yeah, if you can vote at 18, you should be able to run for frickin' president. That's just my opinion. But we have an age, so we have a minimum age. So why not a maximum age? That's going to preclaim, you can run at 80, if you at 75 and still serve office and then until get reelected before you turn 80, then maybe 80 needs to be the cutoff. But how do we make those decisions? Somebody should make them. We also should have a clear-cut procedure in place that allows us to remove, for health and medical reasons, somebody who's not suited for a position. For their own their own well-being and their family's well-being, and definitely the well-being of the public. This just some of this bullshit that gets used and gets manipulated, they get away with, and I don't care which party it is. It just staggers me. It's no wonder our system is so fucked up. It's because we got so many ways of trying to dodge doing the right thing. Yeah, Biden, you can't keep your ass awake. Retire. There's no shame in retiring, bud. Retire. Oh, find somebody. We got plenty of others. Let them all a chance. Any one of them. Most of these freaking current Democratic people potentially run for the office. They have quite a good chance of beating Trump too, because Trump beating himself. Trump's his own worst damn enemy, and I've been saying that. As for corruption, show me the paperwork, bud. Give me the receipts. Show me that Biden indirectly benefited from his son's business dealings. So is he a business partner of his son? And so if that's so, then did he generate income while he was in public office that prevented him from doing so? That's the one we need to find out if that's an actual fact too. If there's bribes or any kind of payments coming from a foreign country to any politician, regardless of party, you need to damn well investigate it and find out why. Because we should not be allowing our public officials to get any kind of funding from a foreign source. Period. And unfortunately, there's too many dodges and side hustles for them to engage in anyway. So the fact is that it wouldn't be as blatant as some of it's being said it is, but at the end of the day, the money's still going to the dark money's going to arrive, because we won't do nothing about dark money until we do that. We're kind of handicapped allowing people with money to buy our system from us, right? So, Biden approved. As for Hunter Biden himself, if the man broke law, punish his ass in a fair trial. Fair. Not using an opportunity to heap on the punishment just because of who his daddy is. Because that is not American, and that's so bullshit. And you know it's so bullshit. Y'all do. I'm not wrong on that. So the man's guilty, let him do his time. Otherwise, piss off. Who gives us? Honestly, who cares? Piss off. You got nothing. You got nothing. You don't. The fact you want to keep some of these certain elements within the GOP keep harping away at those just shows to the ignorance of their own side of not coming to the conclusion that at some point, maybe, just maybe, you need to shut up about it and stop and get on with the road. Just on that thought anyway. Yeah. I don't like Biden. I really don't. I like Biden 100 times better than I did Trump. I voted for Biden because he ain't Trump. Truth is, I would not have voted for Biden either if there hadn't been a Trump. If there had been somebody else, I'd probably, often I go third party because I like the third party stance, even though the third party's got no chance in hell in our system. So it's a joke. Third parties are a joke in this country. Really, if anything else, third parties just tend to be some kind of political dodge for one of the primary parties. They, behind the scenes, they concoct somebody to come up with some punky ass, third party run with the sole intention on it, drawing numbers away from their opponent. More numbers away from their opponent than from their own people. I'm telling you, because that's how they would work it. It's not rocket science. It's not freaking hard. It's pretty simple. Alright, so Biden ain't no Trump. That ain't no lie. He ain't no John F. Kennedy either. That's the hard truth too. He's a sellout to the corporate media. More importantly, he's in the pockets of mainline corporate America, the donors. And a lot of his I'm going to do proactive shit is really just a smokescreen for not doing anything proactive or doing very, very little. And what he does do is like this, can we find a loophole? Is there a loophole? That loophole will do, that'll help 1,000. That'll help 1,000,000 people. Let's give those 1,000,000 people something. See, Biden did this great thing. It's like, legalizing marijuana. He made a serious move by moving it off the Schedule 1. But you still left it a legal substance. You still left it a punishable offense. You should just acknowledge that it's what it is, decriminalize it at the federal level, and let the states worry about it. You did that for prohibition. It would work. They did that for prohibition, and it'll work with pot too. It's inevitable. I live in my state of Iowa, and I'm surrounded by states, both red and blue, who are legalizing the use of recreational weed. And so all I can think of is, every border I go, that plenty of people bringing shit across. You can't partake in any of that stuff here because it's illegal. And get you in jail, put you in prison. You ain't no friend going to prison. Now, someday, eventually. And I know why there's eventual here. And you talk about one of the things I admire about the Chinese people, not the current Chinese government. Fuck the communist goddamn government. The day the Chinese government dumps $1 million in my bank account will be the day I'll sing their praises till the end of the world. Right? I'm cheap. Buy me off. Anyway, no, the Chinese people, they've been in existence as a culture for over 4,000 years. And historically speaking, they are the oldest, almost continuous social and political structure. The Egyptians can be argued a close second, maybe rivaled to them age-wise. But I think someplace I read was talking about the known Chinese culture predates Egyptians by a little bit. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, one of their their pragmatic way of looking at the world is to plan in advance, to plan for the future's generations, to not just don't worry about oneself, one's own generation or one's children's generation, but to start worrying about the great-great-grandfather or the great-great-grandchildren's generation as well. And that long view, in part, has got to do with social standards. And there's a lot of people who want to say, well, that's a communist thing, that's a socialist thing. No, that's just a people thing. So in the people environment in a lot of Asian cultures, and so it's not just China, but in a lot of Asian cultures, that puts forward that people matter, family matter most, and elderly matter. So we look after our elders because we want them to we want to be looked after when our turn comes. We do so out of respect because our elders looked after us when we needed to be looked after, and vice versa. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And so when you take that long view, we start looking at things from the perspective of what will 3 generations or 10 generations from now in America have to cope with and want to deal with. How do we fix things so it helps them? We need to fix things so it helps them, because by helping the future, we help ourselves. And that's just common sense fact as far as I'm concerned. I mean, come on. So the fact that they make plans for long term, well, in a way, that's kind of what our Social Security's for. That's kind of what our Medicare's for. There was a point in time in our life in American history, not that damn many decades ago, when you didn't have either. And somehow most of working redneck America is good with the idea that they won't get theirs, that these programs should stop, because why? And more importantly, what do you do after when they do stop? So how many of your grandparents or your parents who live on fixed incomes suddenly would up and wake up the next day and have no income at all? What would they do? How would they support them? Most of them would have to move home to their children, their grandchildren's, because they wouldn't have any means to do otherwise. You only have to go around the world to see multi-generation people living in the same house, and they do so because there's no choice. They're not going to let their grandparents and their parents go out and die in the streets, so they have to feed them, and they have to clothe them, and they have to see to their medical care as best they can. They have to share the resources. That's what it would be like here in America. Oh, we'd solve our housing problem. We would solve some of it, sure, because a quarter of our country's population would suddenly up and leave their residence to move in with somebody else because they wouldn't be able to support it and pay for themselves. And then I look at the big industry, there's so much industry behind the industry. Part of my job involves servicing various places, including retirement homes and things like that. And so that means there's a whole slew of service industries that support this industry. A huge chunk of the retirement industry, retirement homes, nursing homes, is funded by Social Security. So you reach a point in your life that you absolutely need 24 hours care, and you only have Social Security, you're forced to give up your home. You either sell it or it gets taken away from you. Sometimes maybe you should look in advance and think, maybe I want to sell it, give it to my kid 10 years before that happens, with the caveat I live here till I die, and then the house is yours. Otherwise, if you end up needing to get Medicaid and go to the nursing home, they'll force you to sell your property. They'll sell it, or they'll take it from you. If you don't have family to help you deal with it, they'll just take it from you and sell it for whatever the base value that they can get out of it. And most of that money will not go to you, it will go to them. It'll go to the Medicaid. It'll go to the people that are going to look after you in your twilight years. Meanwhile, the same thing goes to the health care and shit like that. I was amazed when my mother had to go on full disability or on full Social Security after Dad died, and she had to get her own prescriptions. And then I found out she had to have prescription insurance to help pay for her Medicare or her prescriptions. Even though Medicare covered a portion of them, it only covered a portion of them, and it didn't cover all of it. And I thought, she's got to shell out. My wife is in that boat now. We pay $32 a month to have a prescription insurance because Medicare does not cover medical prescriptions for my wife. And because for some reason my mom didn't have it either, and she had to have that supplemental insurance. So already the insurance companies are already getting a piece of the pie. They're getting these supplemental insurance bullshit. Just like the damn pharmaceutical companies are making buku money because they're charging 100 times the value of the item to your Medicare because they get away with it. That's just the truth. So there's those same arguments explain why if it was privatized it would be better, because privatization and innovation and negotiation and no, that's just a fancy way of figuring out an extra way to get money out of you. Hey, look at your cable bill. Look at your electric bill. Just look at it for a minute. Look at all the little fines and fees that have cropped up over the decades. And what do they even stand for? What the hell does any of that shit stand for? I make a joke about that with my boss the other day. I said, you know, if I was, I don't blame these mega corporations, these big massive CEOs, owners of these Elon Musk types of the world. You know, you got the chance, you got to just milk them, get every damn penny you can, because that's the American way. That's how greed works. Greed is good. So no, we want to do things like put little fines and fees. So I would say Bob. Let's put a Bob fee. They go, what? You know, B, capital B, period, capital O, period, capital B, period. Bob. As in Bob, your uncle. What would that do? Well, the Bob fee is going to be $3.95 to every customer every month to this fee called Bob. So what does Bob do? Bob goes to my pocket. I'm the big ass CEO of the company. I'm the owner of the company. I own controlling shares of stock. I want a piece of that too. Give me Bob, and I want it direct. I want it directly sent to my account. No strings attached. They're straight to my account. And somehow we're going to make it so it's not earned income. We're going to make sure I don't have to pay taxes on it too. Right? Yeah. See? Okay. Biden. It's better than nothing, man. They won't let anybody else run against his ass, which is bullshit. Rather have his ass than his ass clown ass, his sleepy ass falling down and shit compared to Trump any day. That's just my opinion. Prove me wrong, man. Just saying. Prove me wrong.